Welcome back everybody to another one of my videos, and this is going to be another one of my monthly news roundups. Now, as we are in the early days of September, this video is going to look at some notable aviation news from the month of August. Almost said October there, the month of August. Now, as always, if there's anything you feel I should be bringing up in these videos and I haven't yet, down below in the description there'll be a link to a news. Basically, it's news@seansaviation.com. Send me the stories you want me to talk about, and as long as I am comfortable talking about those topics and it doesn't overburden this video, then I will include them in the next video. So, love the feedback. Always let me know what you are interested in seeing. And we'll get right into this. I have quite a few topics to go over this month. Hopefully this video isn't too long. And as always, down below, I will have chapters set up. So if there's anything specific you want to see or something you don't want to hear about, you can always skip that section or jump ahead as required. Now, that being said, let's get right into this. And as always, my name is Sean, and this is Sean's Aviation. And just before we jump into it, as always, I'd like to thank everybody who is out there watching this video for being here. Now, if you enjoy what you watch and you haven't yet, down below, you can hit the like, subscribe, and that notification bell. The like will just allow the algorithm to figure out more people who this video should be pushed to, and subscribe and the notification bell will let you know when I release new videos, which I do probably about once a week, depending on the month. So, also, just as a quick heads up to everybody, as my channel is growing and I'm getting close to hitting some milestones, I should be able to start having some merch available through my YouTube channel, and I'm working on some really cool designs out there that I'm very happy and very excited for. So keep your eye out on that. I will have that posted soon, and you guys can pick up some stickers or a t-shirt or whatnot of some ideas I have coming up. So keep your eye out for that if that interests you. So let's jump right into the stories. As always, I have my computer set up just behind the camera here, and I'll be referencing that once in a while for notes, just to make sure I keep track of what I want to talk about. So right off the top, I brought this up in a previous video, the news video. I talked about the new Boeing X-66 truss-braced transonic wing. As I'll put a picture up here of what the X-66 looks like. I did bring it up before. It's a plan Boeing has to come up with this narrow, low drag wing. It actually has to be braced like a Cessna 172 wing or a 150 wing in order to keep the strength in that thinner wing. And it also allows them to look at doing some cooler engine options and newer engine technologies going forward. Now, the news part of this is Boeing has actually already got the fuselage. Now, initially, the story said it would be a modified 717 fuselage. In reality, Boeing delivered an MD-90, which they're pretty much the same fuselage, to be perfectly honest. But an MD-90, I'll put a picture up here of the aircraft on its delivery flight to the Palmdale factory, and that is where it will begin its conversion into this X-66. They're going to cut up the fuselage. They're going to put a section in the middle that will hold all the structure needed to support the wings. The wings will be attached. The rear fuselage will be modified to get rid of the rear-mounted wings, and then you will have the X-66. It's going to be a full-size demonstrator. They plan to fly this in just a couple of years, so it's going to be very exciting to see where that goes and if it does turn into any type of future aircraft design. And the interesting thing that I'm curious about is just the wing. It's going to be a high-mounted wing, and with that T-tail, you're very likely increasing the chances of a deep stall. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about what exactly a deep stall is. It's just, as an airplane, I don't have a little airplane. I have all these airplanes behind me, but I don't have any airplanes that I can just hold. You know what? Give me a sec. I'll grab my daughter's Corsair. So a normal plane, as it's flying, when the wing stalls, you get all the turbulence that comes off the back of the wing. Now, normally, that turbulence does its thing, but your elevators are outside. When a plane such as this size stalls, the elevators are still outside of control, and you can do it. What happens is when you have a T-tail, when you get that aircraft into a really high stall, the turbulence, I'll do it on this side so you can see what I'm saying, the turbulence that comes off the wing hits that T-tail. You have to picture, oh, I am so not prepared for this right now, this demonstration. I said I wasn't going to go into too much detail, and here I am. So when an aircraft like this stalls, your turbulence line will be coming kind of off the leading edge of the wing. So you can picture this, the horizontal stab is outside of your turbulence, and so they have the ability to still control your pitch angle and drop that nose and get some airspeed and climb out of the stall. What happens with a T-tail, you can picture, if you think the horizontal stabs are on top of this T, when you get yourself into a stall, this turbulence layer blanks the top of the tail. And if your horizontal stabs are up there, your horizontal stab ends up being inside your turbulence layer, and it can cause a deep stall. And you've seen there's a lot of aircraft that have this issue, things like the 727, anything with a T-tail, you're increasing the chances of a deep stall. And now most aircraft that have a T-tail have the wings down below, and that partially helps offset the chance of the deep stall. But if you have your wings at the top, yeah, I don't know. My knowledge of the deep stall predicts that, I mean, these guys are a lot smarter than me, but I'm just curious whether they're going to be dealing with this deep stall characteristics with software in the autopilot or the fly-by-wire system, or if they're going to be using some other way of maintaining, to limit that. But that's just where my mind goes when I see a new plane with a T-tail like that. So all that aside, very exciting to see where this X66 goes. It brings out a whole new, family of airliner designs. That's very interesting for the future. So we'll definitely keep my eye out on that. And sticking along with the X-plane theme, NASA's X-59, the quiet SST demonstrator, was rolled out. It was rolled out back in July. I didn't quite bring it up in the last news because it was just a rollout. But they got really close to flying it, and then they've rolled it back in the factory due to some control issues. They're seeing some anomalies in the control system. Never flew or anything, but I'll put the picture up of the quiet SST, or quiet. The program is called the Quiet SST. So the Quest is what NASA's calling it. But I'll put the picture up of what this thing looks like. And again, we should be seeing this flying in the next couple of months. And on the same lines of that, we've got Boom Supersonic's test vehicle, and it is also getting ready to fly. It's sort of a scale model. It's a manned flight. It's a one-person aircraft, but it's kind of the same more or less shape of what Boom's new airliner is going to be. And they are working on they were doing high-speed taxi tests. I think they had it up to like 60 knots on the runway and whatnot. So it is also getting very close to flight. And it's more of a, they're going to validate some of the design features and whatnot to develop the airline. And I'll put the picture up here of what the new airline is going to look like when it's built. I mean, we're talking about Mach 2, airliner. So again, between the X-59 and the Boom Supersonic aircraft, and you've got this X-66, we're seeing this wholesale kind of upgrade on where we're going with commercial aviation in the next probably 15 to 20 years. But it's still very, very, very interesting. So all of that's going on. And again, I'm just going to stick along these news. It's been the month of new technology. The U.S. Air Force has actually signed a contract to have a blended wing body cargo demonstrator built. And they picked, to make sure you get this right, Jet Zero was selected by the USAF to build these things. And I mean, we're talking about a full-size, full-scale demonstrator of this new blended wing body transport. Now, this is the future. This is the aircraft design that the plan is to replace things like the KC-46 and the C-17. This will be the Air Force's future tanker and heavy transport. And again, it feels like something out of of Thunderbirds or something with this design. Like, it's so cool that we're looking at all these more exotic, computer. The ability that with computers to do these designs and optimize airflows and whatnot, it's just bringing out some really, really cool designs that are super efficient and super futuristic. So that the plan for this full-scale demonstrator, the blended wing body demonstrator, and again, if I haven't yet, here's the picture of what it's going to look like. The plan is to have a full-size version demonstrator airframe flying by 2027. 4 years they'll have an actual one flying. And I mean, yeah, it's insane where we're going with that. So I'm very excited to see all of that. Finally, just some airliner news. The 737 MAX is having a couple of issues again. I mean, a lot of the airliners are having issues, but the MAX seems to get the brunt of the stories. And the big one right now is a subcontractor, Spirit Aerosystems, who builds the fuselages for Boeing, has been discovered that in part of the process, there are duplicate or extra holes being drilled in the rear pressure bulkhead. And there's varying stories. Some stories have talked about extra holes. Other stories have said that the holes were just a little bit bigger than were planned. But either way, the one story that I was reading was saying that there were extra holes drilled in the rear pressure bulkhead, and that Spirit was just using blank fasteners. So they would just put a rivet into this hole. It wasn't holding anything, but it plugged the hole. And they never really explained why these extra holes were being made or what happened to cause it, but it was caught. And they're now going through to figure out how many of these airframes had this problem and how they're going to rectify, or if it's even going to cause a problem. They don't know. So yeah, I'm just going to check my notes. Yeah, so there's no word on how many airframes or if any made it into service. They're just saying we're going to do some internal auditing. We're going to figure it all out. There should be no safety issues with the public, but time will tell. But that's a huge blow to Spirit and the MAX program if they find that this is a widespread issue that rolls into aircraft that are in service. Yeah, so then moving on to air shows. Thunder Over Michigan was just over. And if you all had, I'll talk a little bit about it a little later. There was an incident at Thunder Over Michigan, but it was a great show. It's one of the I'm talking about it because I was there. So I got all kinds of videos of some of the content from that show already. I'm not going to link it up here or anything. That's not the point of these news. But if you want to see them, you can browse through my videos. You can find all my content from Thunder Over Michigan. It was a really good show. As always, there was quite a bit of cancellations. They lost a lot of what was expected, but they still had enough stuff there. It was a really, really good show and a really exciting weekend. Airshow London is coming up next weekend, and I'm going to be there. So it's going to be very exciting. Again, I'm going to have a lot of content, pictures, and video. I'm hanging out there for effectively 2.5 days, getting as much pictures and content as I can. I have notes that I made for what's going to be there and whatnot, and honestly, it's all changed in the past couple of days. I'll put up the quick, I'm going to pull it up here on my computer while I'm talking. I'll put up a kind of a video of me scrolling through their site, so you can see kind of what's listed on their site. But even then, they have an app on the phone, and on there it's listing a bunch of performers and displays, and some of the stuff on their app is different than what's on the website. And I actually talked to Jerry Vanderhook, who's organizing the show, and he said kind of they're both a little off, and they're slowly going to get them back to normal. But I mean, just a few of the things that were added, I believe, since the last time I did this. We've got an MC-130J flying. We've got a Coast Guard Jayhawk flying. The A400 is flying on Saturday. There's a B-2 Spirit bomber flyby on the Sunday. VX-9 is doing an arrival on the Friday night with their Super Hornet. There's going to be a KC-135 C-17 refueling demo. There's going to be a CC-130 Hercules H model and a 2 CF-18 refueling demo. 2 Harvard 2s from Moose Jaw is going to be flying. We're going to see F-15s from Oregon National Guard is going to be flying. The MH-53 Sea Dragon is going to be flying. And the International Test Pilot School's Grumman Albatross is going to be flying. Now, as well, on the ground display, we've lost a few things. We lost a couple of the F-16s. There was a Louisiana F-15 added and then immediately taken off. The C-5 Galaxy has canceled. But on statics, we've got KC-135s from Arizona, Washington, and Pittsburgh. A-10 Thunderbolt. U.S. Navy Super Hornets from VF-81 in Oceania, Osprey, Arizona Air National Guard F-16s, the RAF A-400, the F-15s from Oregon, a C-130H from both the Missouri and Wyoming Air National Guards, RC-135, the VX-9 Super Hornets on static Saturday and Sunday, King Air, Bell 412, Bell 206, and a Grobe, all from the No. 3 Canadian Forces Flight Training School out in Portage la Prairie will be present. C-130 Hercules from Naval Air Station China Lake, California is going to be there. A Seahawk from Naval Air Station Jacksonville, Florida is going to be there. U.S. Coast Guard Dauphin, and a CP-140. Now that's what's on the website. There's a few aircraft listed on their app that isn't here. I'm not going to go too into those details, but there's a couple of other like trainers and fighters that are listed that aren't there on the other ones. So it's going to be a really, really good show. Very, very excited to see what actually shows up and what surprises they have, because there's always aircraft that just kind of show up out of the blue that you're not expecting. And then the weekend after that is Aero Gatineau, and there has been a few changes to the static lineup and the flying lineup. The TBM Avenger and the Replica Zero have dropped off. The pilots who are planning to fly those into Gatineau have decided to go to Reno, as it is the last year of Reno. So they are no longer coming up. But there's been an addition. We have an E3 Sentry flying by both Saturday and Sunday. So that's going to be really, really cool. And then on the static side of things, we've got a Globe Swift. Two Globe Swifts have been added. We have a couple of, like a Focke-Wulf 149, a Stearman, a Moth, a Gypsy, a 1928 Gypsy Moth has been added. A Harvard's on static, an RV7 is on static. There's just a lot of cool stuff that's being added. P8 Poseidon, although I think that might have been from the initial announcement. But there's a lot of cool stuff on the ground as well. A lot of stuff for families and kids. So Aero Gatineau is looking really, really good. We'll loop into those incidences, and we're going to start with what I said earlier about the incident at Thunder over Michigan. And it was one of the aircraft that I was very excited to see, and I did get to see it. I'll put the picture up here of the aircraft, and it was the MiG-23. I'm assuming most people who are watching this video now has heard about it already, but they had some engine issues on their pass on Sunday, and while the pilot was attempting to troubleshoot, it sounds like the back seater pulled the handles and initiated the ejection sequence. The preliminary report is out, and that is basically the story. They did the pass. The aircraft did not go into afterburner as planned. The pilot swung the wings forward to the straight position and started a gentle left-hand turn while they tried to troubleshoot his engine. Why wasn't it going into afterburner? Now, there was no sign of an engine failure, just that it wasn't going into afterburner as per the pilot. And in the videos of the actual incident, I'm not going to link any of the videos of the incident. They're on the internet if you want to find them. But in the videos of the incident, you can clearly hear that there is an engine running. It is not an engine failure. He had power. How much power he had is unknown. He wasn't very high because he wasn't climbing. He was maintaining altitude as he was doing his troubleshooting on the pass. It's very possible he had, idle power or just above idle power, and he wasn't getting any more power, and his plan was to land. Either way, the pilot said he was troubleshooting the issue, and he had no intention to leave the aircraft at that point, and the back seater initiated the ejection sequence, and as soon as one person pulls the handle, both pilots go out. So effectively, the pilot was unknowingly and not unknowingly, but against his will, was ejected out of the aircraft. And it would also explain why there was injuries, why the pilot did sustain some serious injuries during the ejection, because he wasn't ready for it. He wasn't prepped, he wasn't braced, he was not expecting it. So it's going to be interesting as the NTSB continues its full investigation into exactly what happened and how it happened and what kind of rules need to go in place for people who are flying in the back seats, especially in aircraft where pulling one seat's handle will initiate both ejection sequences, because that's you're basically putting your life, the aircraft, and the lives of all of those on the ground into somebody who might not be fully trained on the aspects of what constitutes an ejection. So interesting so far. We'll see where that ends up. As well, there was an Alaska Airlines 737 hard landing. I can't remember what airport it was at. I'm not going to do the search online right now. It was in California. I somewhere in Southern California, smaller airfield. Just as that hurricane blew through California a few weeks ago, the 737 was attempting to land and had a bit of a hard landing. It actually punched the left landing gear through the upper skin of the wing. Just it hit so hard, it punched the landing gear up through the skin. Probably a complete write-off on that aircraft. I'll put the picture up here of the aftermath of that thing sitting on the ground with the landing gear punched through the wing. So I mean, again, no reports or anything on exactly what happened there, other than just it was a hard landing. As well, there was an United 767 that landed. Again, I don't have the airport off the top of my head. United 767 had a hard landing. The preliminary report, basically, it sounds like he got into a pilot-induced oscillation, kind of touchdown, bounced, and kept doing like a bit of a nose wheel bounce. And then it actually crumpled the skin all across the top of the fuselage. Again, I'll throw a picture up of the damage on that 67. It's probably a complete write-off. So there's been a couple of interesting, I mean, there's always these things are always happening, but I'm the kind of person who follows the news, so I hear about them all. But anyway, so those are kind of the major incidences in the past little while. To be perfectly honest, if I didn't mention it about the MiG-23, nobody was injured, nobody was killed. Both pilots ejected. The plane crashed into a field beside the highway, the wreckage stopped about 10 feet from a building, but a couple of cars were damaged, but no injuries, no fatalities, all of that. So it was really a good month in the sense that really there were no serious accidents that caused fatalities. There was always some smaller stuff, but in terms of the big media news stories, it was more or less minor incidences that caused some damage and some aircraft write-offs, but no fatalities or injuries. So pretty amazing all told. And yeah, so as I said, I will be out at Airshow London coming up in the next week. So I'll be down there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and trying to get some video and pictures and content. So expect more of that coming up over the next few weeks. Right after that is Aero Gatineau, and I'll be there for the Friday and the Saturday. Again, taking pictures and video. I'll be there with my family on Saturday, so I'm going to have limited ability with that stuff, but I'll do what I can. And again, there'll be content coming out in the weeks following that. So expect quite a bit of content in the next little while, and I'll have some content for the next couple of weeks into the next couple of months as I go back and pull out individual acts and just get some just a bunch of content coming out. So keep your eye out on that. And then again, in about a month, we'll come back and we'll do all of this again and look at another round of monthly news updates. Excuse me, I got the hiccups today. So on that note, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you everybody for watching, and yeah, we'll see you all next time.